powered by NEI Global Relocation. This is Relocation Leader, the podcast where we help advanced professionals in the world of global mobility. Now, here's your host, Zac Turbes.
All right, welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. I'm your host, Zac Turbes, and today we have Henry Gager in the house with us. Henry is the CEO of Corporate Living, and today we're going to talk about what it means to be a young leader in this industry and also get into a little bit of FIFA World Cup. Henry, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Very excited to be here. What's going on, Zac?
Nothing much. You ready to get started?
Oh my God, yeah. And I'm also excited for the World Cup. So let's be very clear about that. I'm a soccer guy myself.
Now, Henry, is it soccer or is it football? You can help us decide this right now.
Soccer. And I can hear Ben in the background. Stop.
Oh, man.
I played soccer my entire life. I played soccer in college, went to school for it. 2 points of view. One is I was born in New York, so I was brought up with the verbiage, soccer. And then number two, as much as I love EPL, I like the UEFA Champions League, I like international soccer in general, like the World Cup. I'm excited for it to come to America.
The only thing, I think I watched the first season of Ted Lasso, and that's the only thing that got me seeing football. Back onto the World Cup here. Do you have any favorites?
Yeah.
Obviously, all right, now don't tell me just U.S. is going to win because we know that. But if you had to say who's going to come in second place, who are you thinking?
The best teams in the world are ones that are structured the best. So think about Spain, think about Italy, think about Germany. The way that they play the game is what's most important. It's either you're passing in your defense, you're pushing forward, you're trying to play the long ball up front, or you're just trying to control the flow of the game. And that is why they've been historically the best countries at the sport. So Italy, Spain, and Germany, those are the ones who should be considered for favorites, I suppose, if we're going off thinking about who's going to win. Americans, I don't really think we have a legitimate shot. Our midfield does not distribute the ball and understand the way that it needs to be played out from the back and basically set up like the chess match that soccer actually is, football actually is. I would be very happy if the United States made it into the round of 16. If they made it out, that would be a fantastic success.
Nice. All right, I'm going to stretch you here, okay? How is soccer like the relocation industry?
It is the exact same thing. So it starts in the back. So if we think about relocation in general, we have RMCs and corporates who are trying to move talent. They're also trying to attract talent, and they're also trying to retain talent. So
talent's the ball.
I guess talent's the ball. I guess that's three things. So we have to have our downstream, which means we know where the talent can go and who's going to be providing the best products and services and administration and operational procedures, whatever it might be, to support you. However, from an RMC and talent perspective, generally, you're not actually providing the service. You're just connecting with another provider who's providing it on top of you. So then it becomes down to process, and that becomes another layer of communication and thought, etc. So think about soccer. It starts at the back end. We have to get the ball out from here, and then we're in the midfield, and now we have the go forward. How do we deal with client services? How do we deal with in-house individuals? How do we deal with client satisfaction? How do we deal with individuals being, after they leave the place, that they're like, hey, that was actually a good experience? And I think that kind of plays into it. It is a team function, but it's an organizational function, that it's organization to organization. And I think that plays into the way that most people think. Whether or not you identify it is, I guess, up to your individual organization. But that is the way that people need to be communicating with each other. Because at the end of the day, it's a transferee. It's one single physical individual who's moving, who might have a trailing partner or a trailing spouse or a trailing family, maybe a trailing dog, maybe a trailing cat. These are the people that are moving through. And I think that's important. And I think that's why, full circle, everything is related to soccer, because soccer is life.
The way I pictured it in my mind was like, you get the RMC, and they're actually not on the field. They're the coach. They're calling the plays and stuff like that. And you have all these star players, and there's like handoffs, which are like the passes. If the coach is the RMC, they're calling the plays. They're putting in the best players at the right times, right? Those players to move the ball or the transferee down the field and get them to the goal in the most efficient means, sometimes using their creativity, sometimes just following the play as standard. I think that you could have the goalie, like he's the only one that gets to use his hands, so he could be like the one who handles exceptions.
He's the stopgap.
Yeah, there you go. If that's the case, then the opposing team's defenders, what do they represent? That's my question.
Yeah, and I like the question. I like the analogy. So the ball can only move in certain ways. It can only move forward, back, left, right. It's a ball. So how do you move it? How do you move any levers that might change that? A couple things. One, I think, is the way that a vendor might be interacting with the purchaser. So, for the sake of example, let's say reporting. Where are these people going? How quickly are they getting options? How many options are they getting back? What is the pricing? Like, how close is the radius? Things like that. Great, perfect. I think that's very smart. I think it's very sharp. I think that's very marketable. And then the second question becomes reporting versus integration and automation. So think about internal teams. How easy is it for me to get my requests out? How easy is it for me to get options back? How easy is it for me to evaluate options? How easy is it for me to standardize those options? How easy is it for me to compare those options? Those become the next level of data integration, but also data comparison. And I think that becomes something that should be very significant from a purchasing of what you want to actually accomplish. And forget my supply side bias, but just think about from just an individual perspective. I want to have the ability to compare. I want to have the ability to evaluate everything. Information is very readily accessible for us as purchasers of clothes or of food or of things of that nature. And that puts us in a good position to make an intelligent, what we determine intelligent purchasing decision, apply that to corporate housing, and just ping it down the road. We haven't really crossed that like intersection at this point.
Moving to the World Cup, because you have these different, I would say, well, what we were just talking about, we have different challenges that pop up and can present different, I guess, pressures on the company to help fulfill service. And I guess availability is a big pressure. And when you have major events like the World Cup coming into town, that does put pressure. Do you want to explain maybe why that stresses the system and where that pressure comes from? I think that when people think about big events coming into the space, they only think about, oh, I bet hotels are booked up, but all the other spaces should be fine. So why would it affect temporary living? Do you want to explain some of those dynamics?
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, the hotel piece is actually kind of a good crux to start on, a good linchpin. Most hotels, think about the influx of travel. So we have the World Cup that is occurring, which will effectively be about 45 days here in the United States / Canada / Mexico. But media, outstanding athletes, and other like marketing outfits, they'll be here for about 90 days, which means we've already expanded our spectrum. And hotels will effectively be booked up because that is the nature of what occurs during these large global events. So from a housing perspective, to your point, it's like, why would corporate housing get sopped up? That doesn't make any sense. And it's because most of the companies with whom we deal, with whom you would think about ABC, NBC, CNN, even like TMZ and any other MediaCom, any other company you could think of, they're going to have people in there for about 90 days. That's just how it is. You can't just grab units in Los Angeles or units in Philadelphia or apartments in New York. They don't exist because the market is tight. And because the hotel occupancy is already sopped up mostly with media, the World Cup is a big deal for lots of large media companies. I think it is the most watched event every single 4 years.
Because it's not just the American media, it's media from all over the world, and they're coming
everywhere
here to cover it. And they need places to stay, and they're going to be here a long time, like you said.
So point being is, yeah, the availability is sopped up, prices are jacked up, and there's no other availability to put folks. So as availability goes down, it's just economics. Supply goes down, demand goes up, and price rises.
The idea about the price rise is like typically, what's the standard markup on that?
Yeah, it's going to be about 20 to 25%.
Yeah.
And we can see that as we move forward. And I say the same thing. It's not like the level of supply and inventories are changing. And I think that's the key factor. They're linchpin, they're anchored. But if you're a regular hotel or apartment supplier, you're probably going to lift your rates just to match the market. So that becomes an interesting nugget for purchasers to potentially digest, swallow, or spit back. And that becomes the biggest thing. It's very hard to predict out and have a long-term expectation or at least projection for where you think your volume is going to go, which is the quickest way to lock in rates.
Yeah.
When you wait, you might find yourself in a high volume or high rate situation.
Locking in early is definitely one strategy. If you absolutely know what dates and where, you should probably hop on that sooner rather than later, is one takeaway there, right? Yeah,
Sure.
And then I also noticed not every match is projected to garner the same amount of attendance. Where you're at in like pool play, is it a match that's further along, or is it one of the entry matches? Is it going to be Spain, or is it going to be, I don't want to trash any other countries here, but is it going to be somebody who's not Spain playing? And those all play into it. Do you find yourself having to now like forecast and try and predict where the volume is going to be at for different locations, or are we not there yet?
We're teetering on the edge, and that's if you will, the secondary level of thinking that yes, there will be the initial time period when all of the influx of folks are coming in, and you're trying to secure availability and make sure that your pricing is in the right place. And purchasers should be wary of that because it will get tighter and tighter. But we do understand that eventually we will move to out of pool play. We will get into the knockout rounds, and things will change, particularly for Los Angeles. I think is probably the most prominent. And if you're trying to bring someone in there, or like from corporate travel perspective specifically, hotels you're either going to have to really, really cost up or maybe try and geographic out. And I think that that's probably the right way to think about it. If you want to try to wedge someone in specifically very close geographically, then you have to stomach a high price. If you want to geographic someone out and then figure out what it is with travel and whether it's cars, Ubers, etc., that is those are the two. That's the seesaw. And you can see that already. We're talking about Marriotts and Hiltons and Hyatts. Most of those properties that are within the Chicago, Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, they're effectively filled for the World Cup, and that's not going to change. It's not like reselling a concert ticket. Those beds are booked. Yeah. There's heads and beds, so it does become an availability shortage, which ultimately increases price.
Can you pinpoint, are there any misconceptions about temp living in these sort of mass event scenarios that out in your mind?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Olympics is probably a good example. Olympics, big word, big, everyone knows what it is. Happens every 4 years. It comes around and it's on everyone's mind. It's prominent. Think about it though. The Olympics were happening in Milan, and they were also happening in, and I'm going to blank on the name because Cortina. Can you?
Oh, I could be like that guy on Joe Rogan that looks things up mid podcast. What is it? What am I looking up?
Cortina. But point being, everyone's,
okay.
There are two major spots where it's occurring. However, it doesn't necessarily affect the amount of travel that companies are placing the importance on their actual movement of talent within to. So use that as an example. The World Cup is actually a good example as well. World Cup's coming to the United States. There are lots of major cities that do not have World Cup venues that are going to have matches occurring. So it's a big event, but it doesn't necessarily affect the way that any of the supply chain or any way that the property providers are associating themselves with the rental amounts or anything of that nature. So that's important too.
Nice. I was just looking this up. It says that there's going to be over 5 million total visitors across U.S., Mexico, and Canada for the World Cup.
That is awesome.
5 million. That's just going to the games, not watching.
I love that.
And I'm pretty sure those are tourist type travelers, not talking about people already there. That's pretty crazy for an event. 45 days is an incredible length for any event, but for an event to attract that many people who are showing up, they're all going to need places to stay. And they've probably been planning these things for years, so they're not going to be the ones left without a place.
No, exactly. Yeah, there's probably a little bit of planning.
So you said LA is probably one of the biggest squeezes on temp housing. Are there any others that you guys are kind of looking out for, or just you've put a star by?
Yeah, definitely. New York is definitely a star. If you're not familiar, the Meadowlands, which is the venue that the World Cup will be hosted in, is actually 45 minutes to an hour outside of New York, which means that most people will have to stay either in Jersey or in New York and then travel. And that means that there's probably going to be individuals, whether it's related to media, whether it's related to entertainment, whether it's related to sports, will probably need to be in New York or in Northern Jersey, which probably means that there's going to be a squeeze and a price increase generally in Jersey specific to the World Cup.
Nice. And so we talked about early bookings, if you can possibly do it. So just kind of getting those dates on the map or on the schedule as soon as possible. Are there any other tactics or ways, like you mentioned, like people moving or like setting people up a little bit further and then trying to deal with travel? But outside of kind of what we've already talked about, are there any other tactics that seem to work for these sorts of scenarios? Or is it like, this is it?
Yeah.
Like you guys get on it right now or else you're going to...
In some way, shape, or form, yes. If you want to keep it as simple as you can, you have to talk with your property managers. You have to talk with your property vendors. You have to talk with your furniture vendors. You have to talk with your utility vendors. And yes, you do have to be, hey, can we get this done at this rate? It becomes a negotiation. However, there are other unique ways that you can potentially think about, particularly given the influx of travel. You can consider different types of product. So let's think single family homes. Let's think about condos. Think about hotels. Think about townhomes, different vendors that could potentially be supporting you in a non-standard way, as long as you have the vetting processes in place, perfectly viable. And as long as you're speaking earnestly and genuinely with either who the purchaser is or who the vendor is, that you can come to some form of agreement that this is a different type of product that might be able to support, given the fact that standard apartments are probably going to be lack of availability.
Yeah. How often do you find yourself having to get creative like that?
I would say on about 20% of our reservations.
Wow, that's actually higher than I thought.
Most of it is geographic related. So we're talking about people who they're moving to the middle of North Dakota. They're moving to, the most southern part of Texas or out in the desert in Arizona. And it becomes, okay, how do we make this work? And I think that is a lost art with, for the most part, what specifically most providers are trying to provide, not selling anything. I think it's important to understand this is a transferee who's trying to move to somewhere specific based on specific criteria. How do we support them based on what they've given us? You got to go find it. It's not always going to be a black and white match. It might be a multicolored solution to a black and white problem.
Like we definitely serve a lot of clients in manufacturing and in like energy and utilities and stuff like that, where we do have to provide these accommodation in places that don't normally or are not normally set up for that. And after you talk about that, it does make more sense to me that this would be a big part of what you guys do. So this kind of dovetails nicely because I was going to ask you at some point, I was trying to find the right moment, and I think I got it right now. What about corporate living really, this humble brag moment, what about corporate living really elevates what a company can do in like the temp living space? We work with you guys. We vet our service partners to a tremendous degree. So we have a lot of confidence in you, but help other people understand why we have that confidence in you.
You want the elevator
I
pitch?
do. Give it to me. I just want to know like what makes a quality temp living provider, given the fact, like you said, that it's commoditized. What breaks through that commoditization?
So it's very easy to stand on speed of communication, proficiency of communication, ability to vet vendor networks, robust supply chain, history of clientele, all that kind of stuff. What really separates us is, and I don't love this, but I think it's the right way to do it. We have the best team who everyone understands their role, everyone understands their position within the company, the communication internally to make sure that what your specific position is within the assembly line of how we provide service is second to none. There is no ambiguity, and that becomes an important part of how we have attracted talent and retained talent. And if you want to spank it into something else, corporate living just has the best reputation. We don't have payment terms. We are the people that you want to be actively talking to, and will always be on top of your calls. You can communicate with us. That's it.
Nice.
We're good relationship people, and we're here for you always.
And responsiveness, being able to just get the job done and understand what the level of service that we expect is. You guys get it. And yeah, I think that when we're talking about just elite organizations, we do see that there is something to be said about experience, which leads me to my next point, which is, why does this company, who is older than you, like, entrust Henry with the direction of the company? Like, how did you end up here, and what are you planning for the future?
Love the question. Also hate the question, but love the question. The bane of my existence, but also the bane of my vision. Well, I was lucky enough to fall backwards into this company about 8 years ago. A friend of mine introduced me to the owners and worked my way into it, and have been effectively helping run the company for the last, let's call it 6 years, might be 7, but something like that. But it introduced me to an industry that I wasn't aware of. And it's really allowed me to work with both our partners who've been here for 25 years, lean on experience, lean on new talent acquisition that we've acquired over the last 5 years. And then from a push forward perspective, we have this great nugget of opportunity where we have a stellar reputation, which is based on the minds and the work and the stomping of the feet of lots of other people that I've been lucky enough to inherit. But we have the structure to be positioned to push ourselves to not only within just general relocation, but also to rethink the way that we're providing corporate accommodations. And it becomes a really special treat, albeit a stressful treat, that we can support relocation companies, corporate relocation divisions, corporate travel divisions. Like basically the world is our oyster. We have all of the structure that needs to be put together. It's already there for us. And me interacting with our people and just trying to think about our vision, I lean on everyone. Yes, I am the CEO, and yes, I'm the decision maker. Every single person, I'm beholden to them. If they don't do their job, I can't do my job, and vice versa. They are the 100% backbone behind what we do. So I just feel lucky that I was given the opportunity to be here, effectively.
Yeah. I will say it is interesting when you get to a certain level. Are there any, I guess, pieces of wisdom or advice that have really meant a lot to you for your time as CEO?
Yes. And I'll take a hot moment to credit my girlfriend. She has instilled in me the credence and the value of forthrightness, speaking your truth, spit it out. That way we can digest it together, and then we can figure it out together. And that's not to say that anything wrong with me and my girlfriend. It's just more, hey, if you just spit it out, be honest with your clients, set the expectation correctly. That way there's no opportunity for foot in your mouth because you spoke it. And I think that is actually very good advice. It's completely lifted a lot of weight off of us. Not that there was anything wrong, but it's just speak it, and then we can brainstorm it, and then we can figure it out.
I'm curious, was there anything hard, like a skill it didn't come easy for you to develop, or maybe a challenge that really grew you in a particular way?
Yeah. We went through an ownership transition back in February of 2025 last year. So it's been 1 year of basically being in a new position, a new outset, a new focus. And yeah, it definitely has changed. Went from family ownership to private equity ownership. Changes. The reporting requirements change. The demands change. The family dinners change. Things change. Change is good. Change is growth. Just have to make sure that change is what you want the future vision of the company to actually be. And yeah, that has been a transitioning period. And it's important to at least acknowledge because it exists. So yes, that has certainly changed the way that I think about the way that I interact with personnel, with vendors, with clients, and it has affected, in a, knock on wood, a positive way, the vision for the company.
What is something about leadership in general that you believed going into it, and then now you think totally differently?
Oh, easy. So I thought that leadership was title-based. I did. Seriously. I thought it was about like what your email signature says, the way that people think about what they see when you're communicating with them. And that has nothing to do with anything. It is 100% the way that you're actually physically communicating with people. It could be over the phone. That's still physical communication. It could be over email. Still physical communication. It could be over Slack. It's all the same. you are only as good as your expectations are set. Do you meet them? And do you actually push out something that can be attainable, physical? What's the vision? And I think vision is probably a good word. But yeah, I always wanted to be a CEO, truthfully, if I can be honest about it. It sounds cool. It's not all it's cracked up to be. It's way more freaking work than I ever thought it would be. It's all about the people. You have to be beholden to your people. And that is what's most important. And I'd like that about NEI specifically. And I'm not trying to suck up, but it's important because it has to be. I do not exist if Kathy doesn't exist. Kathy's sitting like 10 feet away from me right now. I don't exist without her. And you have to realize that. And I think that was the most, call it humbling, which I don't like the word, but call it humbling. It's like, I'm not here if she's not here. And I think that is the number one thing that I think I've realized.
Cool. Henry, thank you so much for coming on. It's been fun. And I can't wait to release this episode and let everyone know what they should be thinking about in terms of World Cup and temp housing and leadership and all the rest.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
That was another episode of Relocation Leader. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you back in 2 weeks.
This has been Relocation Leader, the podcast where we help advanced professionals in the world of global mobility. Listen back here every 2 weeks for a new episode on NEIReload.com or on your favorite podcast platform. We'll see you next time.